New Year's Day was meant to be quiet. The kettle on, the telly humming, politics asleep for a few hours. Instead, Scotland lobbed a political hand grenade straight into Westminster. A fresh poll didn't just bruise Labour, it flattened them. And almost on cue, the government quietly shoved England's local elections into the long grass. Officially, it's administrative. In reality, it smells like panic with a clipboard. When voters turn away this fast, governments don't lean forward, they stall. What's happening north of the border isn't noise, it's a warning siren. Because when Scotland moves first, the rest of the UK rarely stays still. Let's break down exactly why this poll matters and why Starmer's grip suddenly looks anything but firm. Labour's support in Scotland has collapsed to 23%, a sharp fall from the 35% they secured at the last election. That isn't drift, that is voters actively walking away. Political support doesn't vanish overnight unless something fundamental snaps. This drop signals frustration, not confusion. Scottish voters know exactly what they are responding to. A year into government, expectations were set high, yet daily life has barely shifted. Prices remain stubborn, wages lag, services strain. When a governing party loses over a third of its backing in such a short window, it's no longer a messaging problem, it's a credibility problem. And credibility, once cracked, spreads quickly. And that leads straight into something even more damaging. One poll now projects Labour winning 0 seats in Scotland if a general election were held today. 0. Not marginal losses, not reduced presence, total wipeout. That's the sort of projection that sends campaign teams scrambling and party leadership reaching for excuses. Scotland has long been Labour's parliamentary insurance policy. Remove that, and the entire electoral map warps. A party cannot claim national authority while being erased from a nation that once formed its backbone. This isn't about one bad data set, it's about structural rejection. When voters reach the point of delivering nothing, they aren't negotiating, they're finished listening. And the humiliation doesn't stop there. Another survey places Labour behind Reform UK and even the Greens, pushing them into 4th place. 4th isn't opposition, 4th is irrelevance. Being overtaken by smaller parties tells a brutal story. Labour is no longer the default alternative. Voters aren't simply swapping red for blue, they're shopping elsewhere entirely. That kind of fragmentation happens when trust evaporates. People aren't inspired, they're disengaged, irritated, and willing to experiment. Once a governing party becomes the safe target for protest votes, it's lost control of the narrative. The political centre doesn't hold itself, it has to be earned. Which makes the timing of the next move rather interesting. On the very same day these polls surfaced, the government quietly announced the delay of England's local elections until May 2026. The justification was wrapped in technical language about boundary reviews and efficiency, but voters aren't daft. Governments delay elections when they fear results, not paperwork. Pairing collapsing support with postponed ballots sends a single loud message. The leadership knows the mood is sour. Delays buy time, not loyalty. And every month that passes without a vote allows resentment to harden. You can push a date back, you can't push public opinion into submission. Because once the maths shifts, pressure follows. Labour's route to long-term power depends heavily on Scottish seats, always has. Lose that block, and suddenly every remaining seat carries extra weight. Every loss must be compensated elsewhere. That's when governments start stretching promises thin and finances thinner. A shrinking coalition creates desperate arithmetic. The fewer seats you hold, the more you demand from those still supporting you. That tension ends the same way. Higher taxes by stealth, frozen thresholds, reduced support disguised as reform. Voters sense when a government is running out of room. Scotland's numbers suggest that the squeeze has already begun. and voters feel squeezed long before politicians admit them. Despite grand speeches about stability, everyday pressures remain relentless. Energy bills still sting, food prices haven't softened meaningfully, council tax continues to climb. Frozen income thresholds quietly drag households into higher bands. None of this disappears because leadership changes hands. For many families, life feels harder, not steadier. Political patience relies on tangible relief, not reassurances. When people can't connect government messaging to what's happening at the checkout or the boiler cupboard, frustration sets in. Scotland's polling reflects lived experience, not ideology, and lived experience tends to vote with ruthless honesty. That frustration deepens when public services falter. Public services across the UK remain under strain, and Scotland is no exception. Hospital waiting lists stretch on, police forces operate thin, local councils hover near financial collapse. These are not abstract problems, they shape daily confidence in governance. When services deteriorate under a government promising competence, voters don't debate policy, they withdraw consent. Stability loses meaning when outcomes worsen. You cannot ask people to wait patiently while systems visibly decay. Polling doesn't collapse because of ideology alone. It collapses when governance feels distant and unresponsive, which exposes a deeper identity problem. Labour once defined itself as the party rooted in working communities. Today, many voters struggle to see that reflection. The leadership appears focused on optics, caution, and internal discipline, rather than decisive action. Voters don't need briefings to notice when priorities shift. They notice through bills, safety, and opportunity. When a party's language no longer matches its impact, trust erodes quietly, then suddenly. Scotland's poll suggests a turning point where voters stop hoping for improvement and start accepting disappointment as permanent. That moment is politically lethal. And it's rarely isolated to one region. Dismissals of just one poll miss the wider pattern. Turnout declines, safe seats wobble, delays multiply. The political weather is changing, and Scotland is simply the clearest indicator so far. Historically, shifts there precede broader realignments across the UK. Voters talk to each other, discontent travels. When one region decides it has alternatives, others reconsider their loyalty. Momentum in politics doesn't announce itself loudly, it accumulates quietly until suddenly it's unstoppable. This poll is less a snapshot and more a directional arrow, which leaves one unavoidable conclusion. Labour can delay elections, manage messaging, and frame narratives, but it cannot indefinitely outrun voter judgment. Scotland's response suggests patience has limits, even early in a parliamentary term. Once voters believe a government isn't listening, every decision is interpreted through suspicion. That erosion accelerates rapidly. A party losing its grip doesn't fall because of one mistake, it falls because people stop believing change is coming. Scotland's figures indicate that belief is already slipping away, and when that happens, recovery becomes brutally difficult. So here's the real question. If you're watching from Scotland, is Labour still earning your vote, or has that chapter closed? And if you're elsewhere in the UK, does delaying elections feel responsible, or does it confirm that the government knows trouble is brewing? Drop your view in the comments. If this breakdown connected headlines to reality, like the video, subscribe for straight talk coverage, and share it with someone who still thinks Labour's position is untouchable. Scotland might not be the end of the story, but it looks very much like the beginning.